Okay, guys, I'm passing out the agendas for our meeting today. Thank you all for being present. I'm so excited. We want to discuss our small group instruction time, which I've kind of talked to us all about individually. So if you look at our agenda, we really want to focus on just reviewing the data first. So I've attached the data, which has all 4 homerooms. So if you don't see your name, it's because we share the ELA with someone else. So let's review the data for a few seconds, and then we're gonna get into this discussion question here. Any questions on any of the data? Okay, cool. All right, and I know it's missing a few students, but this is similar to what we are familiar with, yes?
Yes.
All right. So the question, and I've kind of been thinking about this, especially in working with our DL students, is how do we focus our instruction to make sure we're meeting the needs, especially because we don't really have intervention. And so I think our intervention is our small group instructions, right? So the question is really, what is needed what do you think is needed to provide better instruction for our lower tiered students during small group time?
That's a good question. I think really taking advantage of our DIBELS progress monitoring, right? So we can kind of align each lesson with where each group is, because I think we all have maybe 4 groups in our small groups. So, and it goes of course by above average or above benchmark, at benchmark, below benchmark, well below benchmark. So that's kind of how each group is separated. So those lower tier will probably be like, of course, well below. So kind of just making sure that we're spending time internalizing, analyzing those progress monitoring scores, so that we can decide on what part of the lessons do we need to stick to. Is it phonic, or is it something else as far as chronological lessons, things like that. So that's just my take. So
really just more alignment. You think it's kind of like not aligned, right?
Well, especially because we'll be doing testing soon. So we haven't done the test since middle of the year. So I feel like some have grown, some have, maintained, and some have some could grow even the more. So I think that could be something that I take on personally before we even get to our next DIBELS testing.
Is that also maybe progress monitoring? Maybe how we're monitoring the students is not really showing us who's growing, who's not growing.
I think we're also not, I know I'm not consistent with the progress monitoring. Like we were doing it every Friday, but and it was like kids were every other Friday, but I know I have not done it in a minute.
Well, especially we was focusing on IAR.
Right. We were focusing on IAR, and I think in our groups we were focusing on IAR stuff for a little bit, but
For sure.
so I haven't even progress monitored.
Yeah.
How do you progress monitor when you do?
We have the low passage, and they just progress monitor on what their gap is. So if they're focusing, if they need to practice their decoding, then we progress monitor on the decoding passage, what's the word I'm looking for?
So it's like built in the assessment? Or?
Yeah, it's in the program.
It's provided for us.
Yeah.
We literally have a script.
Yeah.
All of that is provided.
Nonsense words. Like some kids are doing nonsense words.
Yes.
Some kids are doing the passage. It just depends on what their gap was. And then another thing I started doing was, because some of my kids I know are in the well below, they're scoring at a well below, but I know based on classwork and tests in class, they're actually some of my highest kids, but on DIBELS they're scoring in the lowest, and it's just because of how quickly they read and how fluently they read. So I've been doing fluency passages with one-on-one with some kids.
Yeah, that's good stuff.
Yeah, just to get them so that their DIBELS score matches what they actually should be at.
And then I have some that's kind of like the opposite, where they understand what they're reading, their comprehension level. I think I said chronological earlier and I meant comprehension, but comprehension. And they're able to say all of the words. However, they're not going the pace that the test.
Right, that's what I'm saying, that's why I
Right.
like doing the fluency passage.
Yeah.
Just to
Right.
like
Okay.
To
read
build it up.
faster.
Yeah, okay.
And like
Got it.
feel.
Cause I feel like they know the words, they know what they're reading, they can tell me the main characters,
Right.
the settings and things like that, which is great. But if they're not going the pace of the test, it's kind of making it seem like, you know, they're lower than where they are,
Mhm.
because some of them actually read to internalize
Okay.
versus just read to,
Right.
you know,
Mhm.
read
To get
fast.
through it.
To get
Right.
through it, right.
So what I'm hearing is, one is aligning the lessons to focus on specific Dibble skills,
Mhm.
and two is progress monitoring, maybe more consistent progress monitoring.
Mhm.
And so it's already built in, but we're not doing it consistently. What do you think that's about?
Timing. I think Fridays run fast. I think, honestly, it's not a part of my routine, so then I just like forget. I know when I was remembering before, it was because Proctor would like send a text and be like, guys, don't forget to progress monitor, or like this with progress monitor. I'd be like, oh yeah, we have to do that. So I just need to have it in my routine.
And then also considering IAR,
Mhm.
we were prepping a lot for IAR too.
Mhm. That was, I mean, I literally dropped a lot. We were so focused on writing and making sure that they
Uh-huh.
could complete an essay and understand how to read a prompt and
Mhm.
dissect the prompt to respond to it. So,
And
I agree that IER really took a turn for how consistent my class, I can only imagine everybody else.
Yeah, for like
You
a
know.
month and a half,
Mhm.
easily,
Yeah.
2 months.
Do you think that there was a disconnect between IAR and Dibbles?
Well, yeah, because Dibbles only tests literally their fluency, how
Right.
quickly they read and
IAR
accurately.
was writing and
Mhm.
comprehension.
Uh-huh.
Mhm. Yeah.
And there's a comprehension portion of Dibbles, but it's like a very different comprehension portion.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I also wanted to mention something regarding timing, like in general, time management. We need to be especially strategic with grouping and making sure that those groups are allowing the students to be amongst peers that are at their same level, be amongst peers who are at a higher level, so they are able to then, you know, have some peer modeling, and then also be with some peers that are below, so that they are able to be the model for other students,
Mm.
and that takes a lot of time.
Right, so not necessarily homogenized groups, but
Mm-hmm.
sort of.
Well, that's kind of, that makes sense, right? But then when we look at the way that Dibbles scores, they want us to pair well below with what, literally going with where they're at in Dibbly.
And how quickly they read.
And how quickly they read. I like that, right? Because that's kind of how I separate my kids in class, you know, with
Mix.
a mix of, you know, not just with personalities, but also their strengths in, you know, each subject. So I have some strong, you know, math by, you know, someone who's not as strong in math versus, you know, I might have a lower tier reader that's by someone who can read chapter books, you know, and that's kind of like that challenge that you were just talking about. Now, I recommend the same, like I actually have some, honestly, because they told us to actually do it that way, but I think a lot of the teachers realized quickly that wouldn't align with their growth, and then what we would be teaching. Like right now, my lower tier, I have some that can sound out consonants, and then I have one that barely knows the sounds, that's still chopping up each sound to blend, right? So blending, right? And then I have some, it's about 5 to 6 in that group, and then I have some that are in the middle of both. Some can do some words, and some sounds, and blend some sounds, where as when we add endings or when we add prefixes, you know, they're struggling. So I love that idea, and it's very real. Like, we need to really strategically decide on who goes in each group.
Mm-hmm.
But it's kind of like, where do you find that balance from you being your teacher and knowing your kids versus what the test or or what the leadership is requiring of us.
Or just like like what you see. So like mine is like Michaela, she scored like so low, right? Like her fluency is so low, but she is one of my highest students. Like what I've seen on every single assessment from Wheatley, like all these things. So I actually just put her in the second highest group. And like she's one that I'm working more separately one-on-one with her fluency.
Yeah.
Because it's like, I want her comprehension to continue to grow, and I don't want her to sit there continuing to practice just words every day and reading a passage at a first grade level when, like, what
It becomes
Yeah.
right, like and her fluency is picking up. Like, yeah, she had the skill, she knows how to sound it out, she just needed more practice with it.
Okay, well, this is our time.
Okay.
But let me tell you what I'm thinking.